You have a copy of the.
All right, the meeting will come to order. This is April 25th, 2023. We only have one item on the agenda tonight. If there's any additions, let me know now. We'll probably put it after we're done with Jason. Okay, we'll just go ahead then. Permit number 23-400. DMV Properties, Inc., located at North 116 Road, parcel number 030-111, is requesting sketch plan review for 5-lot subdivision per the Bristol Unified Development Regulations, Article 9, Section 920. So, Jason, you gonna?
Sure. You might as well come up.
Why don't you climb up and walk us through the proposal?
You have a map.
I got the big one.
Perfect. I got it.
It's already on the screen for you.
So actually, I'll give credit where credit is due. Donovan is the lead project manager on this one, so he knows more about it. Donovan has
So you're
more.
both gonna testify.
Correct.
All right, so Donovan, raise your right hand. Jason's gonna raise his too. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give before the zoning development review board, and I still want to say zoning board of adjustment, development review board shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. I did that all by myself without Ted here to remind me. I want the record to duly reflect.
It was very good. Well said.
All right. Take her away.
Sure. So the parcel is, like Kevin said, is situated north, Vermont Route 116, owned by DMV Properties, Inc. It's actually a large, really large parcel that's on the westerly side of 116, and it straddles the Starksboro Bristol line. There's greater than 500 acres total. I'll say there's 245 or 250 in Starksboro, and then there's 275 in the town of Bristol.
But this proposed development is all of this.
Is all in the
Totally
town of
within
Bristol. Yes, that's correct. Yep. The subdivision as proposed is being proposed as a plan unit development in order to configure the parcels to conform with the current land features and the way the existing parcel was created. There's a little sliver of land that's situated on the far southerly end that touches Route 116, which does lend itself to a small residential development that would be done in a PUD fashion. And its parcels range in size from 1 to 2 acres. 4 new parcels would be created.
What's the total acreage of those 4?
Total acreage of the 4, 2, 3, 5, so it's about 6 all total.
Yeah.
There's, once the subdivision is done, the remaining land, lot 5, would be 268 acres plus or minus in size. So the goal, the intent of doing a PUD in this case is to do the smaller parcels. If it does fit in that area, it still meets the density requirements within that area in terms of the remaining land that's left over. So that's what the client has proposed for the subdivision.
And so we're gonna have on-site septic for each of the 4 lots and shared wells or drilled wells for each.
Currently, right now we have individual wastewater systems. We're going to shoot for individual drilled wells. However, once we start laying out and designing and putting on all the isolation distances, they may change. There may be 2 or 3 wells to serve all 4 homes.
Okay. And so you're gonna have to give us proposed building envelopes.
Yep.
When you get around to that.
So-
Is this roughly what you're anticipating, where the houses are shown now?
Correct. So we do have the zoning setbacks on for the building envelopes currently. There is a 50-foot wide right of way that does go along the northerly boundary line. That's to serve other lands of Barry O'Connor, which this was part of the O'Connor family parcel at one point in time. So
Was that a it's just a right of way, right? now?
just a right of way.
So how does that Connor lot have access to Route 116.
by that right away. It's currently, that is its access.
So it's all undeveloped,
It is, and it's actually all past due wetland.
the whole right of way is, I see the
No,
wetland.
Barry
Yeah.
Connors property.
Barry Connors
Okay,
property.
yeah,
So by and large, maybe there's something way up in the back.
yeah,
But that's kind of, it's accessible by the right of way, but it's not really lends itself to a developable.
yeah.
The right of, I see the right of ways there, but there is no actual trail or road or anything on that right now?
That's correct, Tom. That is just a 50-foot right of way that's right along, situated along that north boundary.
And it's currently deep to burial,
It is, yep,
Barry Connor, okay.
that's the
And
access.
we're in RE5 here, is that right, Chris?
You are.
That is correct.
All right. Any questions for Josh or Donovan?
Sorry, you want a bigger copy or you're good? No, I'm good. Thank you.
So it would be one access that still needs V-Trans approval.
Right,
With a cul-de-sac for a turnaround and 4 homes that are situated kind of close together. We can certainly tune in or bring together those building envelopes as Kevin suggested.
How wide is the actual street that you've provided for there? Not the cul-de-sac, but the lengthier parts.
Sure, I'll defer to Donovan, but I believe it's 18 with a foot of shoulder on each side, so.
That's correct. Yep. Yeah, 18 feet wide for the shared portion, and then the individual sections are 12.
Okay, good enough for two-way traffic.
Is that good enough for fire and rescue? 18? We usually do 20,
Which it is a total of 20, it's at 18 with a foot of shoulder,
okay,
yep, so it's.
I would recommend just having, the fire chief, Brett LaRose, take a look at the plan.
Yeah.
And sign off on it, if that would make you feel more comfortable.
That's fine.
Any other questions, John? I don't see you.
Yeah, I
Brenda.
do have a couple of questions.
Yeah, I figured, so do I. Go ahead.
I'm just looking at the project description that is on the sketch plan narrative.
Hmm.
And the zoning here is 5 acres, is that correct?
That's right.
It's
Not
a
2
5
acres,
acre-
not 2 acres as stated in the first paragraph there.
Oh, that was a mistake.
Yeah,
Well, it's a.
The 2 acre minimum residential, 5 acre.
it's
density.
actually, yeah, that's 5 acre for each dwelling unit, 2 acre minimum lot size, John. I believe that's.
That's right, that's accurate. Page 16 of the regs, John.
Right.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 26, I misspoke.
All right, and another question is, I'm not sure how this qualifies as a PUD. And therefore,
Fine. You're reading my mind, John.
yeah, I mean, just declaring it a PUD doesn't sort of grant a magic waiver to just, go below the zoning regs here. So I don't see that there's common land or any common facilities or anything that makes it a PUD. It's just 4 separate homes.
Yeah, I mean, that's to follow on what John said, Jason, might as well get it right out on the table. That's what this meeting's for.
Sure,
I
absolutely.
don't see any relationship between these 4 proposed lots, which are way smaller than the district requires,
Sure,
with the remaining land. I would feel, so we got 4 lots, we gotta have, and under the overall density does not exceed the number of dwelling units which could be permitted mathematically. What I am concerned about is that we've got this big remainder chunk of over 200 acres with no relationship to it for these lands. So by density, we should have 20 acres for these 4 lots.
sure.
And this is just me, I don't know what you guys will think, but the way I'm thinking about this is, we've got a little choke point here, 63 feet wide, and we've got a lot of wet land over there. I'd want to see, and I think we're required under 609, the overall density. There's no tying of this development to the remaining land, which kind of wraps around it in a funky way.
Absolutely.
So I think my preference is to see some revision to this where you're making some, and I would guess it'd be on the north side, but that'd be up to you because we've got linkage here.
That'd be
That's
the
all
only- Yeah,
that I think you can cluster And you can have these smaller lots, but you gotta have 20 acres involved in this.
And we did talk about that already with the client and
Okay.
and with Chris.
Yeah.
So, that was one
just
where we
wanted
kind of
to-
wanted,
I just wanted to add to that. Without doing that, if you don't subdivide off yet a fifth lot and make the rest of the 20 acres, then I think the only way to interpret this is the entire rest of the parcel is part of the PUD and you can't develop it. So I think you, one way or the other, you got to help us get to our density. So
sure,
Yeah.
if you don't do that, I think we're obligated to basically say the rest of it's not developable. You used it as part of the PUD to support this.
well, here's the proposal that we would toss out. We wanted to talk about this with the board, because when we do come in for these, I mean, obviously, the intent of a PUD is to maintain the smaller lots and not try to chew up acreage for all these parcels, which we have 275 acres, and we could easily do this here, but it would be some really goofy lots. Second, so what we would propose to do is actually expand that lot 4, which is now currently about 2 acres in size, to get the balance of the property, and there could be some common land either that would satisfy some trails that would serve lots 1, 2, and 3. But that would be how we would offset that area, where we would make the smaller lots in the front where it does make sense. And like Kevin said, the only real place to go is through our pinch point, which is the 63 feet, and then we would expand lot 4 to gain the acreage.
Or that's all, whether it's part of, it's up to you whether that's part of lot 4, or that you've got an area of common land of sufficient
Yeah.
size that 1,
Adds
2,
up to
3, and
20.
4, that 1, 2, 3, and 4 can enjoy. And I don't know if it's how wet it is, if it's farmed or something.
It's wooded.
It's all wooded.
It's
So
a class 2 wetland.
It's very wet.
yeah, so there could still be, uses allowed by easement for the landowner if they wanted to have
Mhm.
logging rights or things like that. But I think you've gotta,
Come up with the balance.
well, yeah, you look
Yep.
at 609 4B, the overall we can't waive the overall density. And the overall density here is 20 acres for 4 lots, so we've gotta.
So we got a one bigger lot or a common land that adds up.
Yeah, I think, you've got to get to 20 and
Okay.
you can figure out, how best to do that.
Yeah, I think I would go to a 20 lot, a 5 lot subdivision and just make the 5th lot your common land. Although you're gonna
Yeah.
have to put access over what you guys have labeled lot 4. Really,
So that would
everybody else
actually
is
be-
gonna have to be able to, that lot 4 is gonna be encumbered with easement access for everybody else.
And so that would actually be.
But maybe that can be-
6 lots and then with the 7th lot being.
Oh, yeah, you're right, 6 lots, leaving your original lot. Yes.
What
you're
about
right,
just
6
a,
lots.
what about a set
Unless you
aside?
made 4 big, like
Right,
you were saying.
unless we made 4 bigger with a set aside. So, the one
You could
thing
do that.
that was, we did discuss this when we were laying this out with the client, and, he wanted to talk about it with the board first. Unfortunately, he was on vacation, but we decided to have it, so.
Yeah, no, that's what
We
the
could
sketch
open
plan's
it, talk
for,
about
so
what
we can figure out concerns and this is going to be, this is a 4, at a minimum, it's a 4 lot subdivision, could be a 5 ultimately. So it's a major, that's an easy call, so there'll be 2 hearings.
Mhm.
There'll be a preliminary hearing, when Jason's, ready with a revised sketch. We don't have to do a sketch plan again, but you've gotten
No, we just get your
you've gotten
feedback.
some guidance from the board about what we think you need to do. Everybody comfortable with that?
Is there a preference?
Say something.
Sure.
So the proposal here really talks about kitty cornering all this development in one corner of the property. To your point, you don't want to chew up the rest of the land. However, the intent is really to have space and separation between these houses. I would almost say that if you were, to the 20 acre development that was referred to previously, because of the challenges of the site with the wetland, there's going to have to be significant improvements so those lands are usable beyond the footprint of the 6 or so acres.
I'm not following.
Me neither. we're,
bridges or something, you're gonna, I mean, right now, it's completely inaccessible. I realize that the site has its natural challenges.
But actually where the development is proposed is, there's not really much in the way of challenges. It's an open field that's its own, 6-acre chunk.
To the north of your abutting property owners, number 5 and 6 on this key plan. It looks like there's additional properties that are to the east of the wetland barriers, so those look like they could also be developed. But
You wouldn't,
point being is, if you're gonna kitty corner these houses in one part of the property. And I would expect that you're putting infrastructure in so that they can leverage the balance of that 20 acres.
don't think you'd be able to on account of the wetlands. I think that's going to, I think that the backside of this property is gonna be restricted from development on
Agreed.
account of that.
Agreed, and that's why I think that the 4 in this corner is probably inappropriate.
you lost me on the, when you say kitty cornering, Josh, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, you've got
You mean
you've got
I
four
mean, it's a cluster.
houses on 6 acres.
Yeah,
That's the way I read it. I don't see it as being part of a 200+ acre lot.
all right, that's why we're talking about making a 20-acre total development.
Yeah, I'm not-
One way or the other.
Right.
I mean, isn't
But
the
Josh is trying to say that he doesn't think that land is really useful for anything, even, for their use. I think you can still, you don't strictly speaking have to be completely usable, but
Well,
can you
yeah.
access it at all?
Yeah,
What do you-
there is access. You can walk through that, 60-foot chunk or whatever, it's not water by any means. It's, it's above ground. It's actually kind of a nice little walking area that you can walk north. You can kind of walk out, and the further west you get, it starts to get pretty soft. But, wetlands do kind of have natural beauty. There is appeal to it. As you get out in there, it's actually really gorgeous. As you look to the west, there's, then there's the hill on the other side of the swamp there. And so, like, I guess where I would kind of chime in is like, how do you define use? Could walking and enjoying the nature be considered a use to?
Yeah, I'll speak for myself. I think that could be okay for me, but you're gonna have to make it at least barely accessible, which means maybe that's a trail down through that right of way that already goes to the lot and behind that can then curve around there. And it doesn't have to be a real big trail, but at least a reasonable accessible trail if you've got actual standing water or something, some kind of bridge over it and get you back there and arguably be able to use that other property as part of your extended property.
Right.
I think a trail is definitely reasonable. I mean, we've shown that we have wastewater capacity. We've shown where we're attempting to cluster houses into one area, which I think is a good use of the
Yeah,
property.
I don't think the zoning had envisioned for, reducing the density to 1.5 acres per house. I mean,
Actually,
Actually,
my
PUD
sense, when I sat on the planning commission, when we envisioned PUDs, when we wrote the town plan, we actually talked about clustering just like this.
mhm.
With the
Yeah.
intent is to reduce lot sizes very much, and then the remainder being utilized as common lands or non-developed
Or a larger
lands.
parcel.
We even
But
talked
Chris-
about.
Chris, you're
using
absolutely
wetlands
right.
for
That is the intent. That's the intent of a PUD. And it, makes sense, except that the rest of the land has to be at least somewhat accessible and useful. If it's, if it was underwater, for example, it's not.
Couldn't you
So-
swim? Could you swim? Is that use? Like, I know I'm kind of being smart here, but like, how do you define use?
Well, we'd have to interpret that, but it has to be the whole idea is to allow the density to collect in one area and have in theory, the people would have the benefit of their bigger open area that they would share.
Yeah, like maybe
they
a
gotta be able to
pond.
get on it.
and they could
gotta
swim.
get on it and share it. Well, it's just, I guess we're just expressing our opinion.
Right. No, I
If you
understand.
tell me the rest of it's gonna be underwater, I'm gonna have trouble with this.
It's not
So
underwater.
It's
It's
not
not.
underwater.
It's not. You can
It
walk.
is actually,
yeah.
you can walk
nice
back
in there.
there. There's plenty of people that access it for hunting. I mean, I look at it, wouldn't you want smaller parcels with the bulk of the land left in its natural state?
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, that's the intent of a PUD. I mean, that's what we keep.
It is.
no, I think, I'm
Trying.
go ahead, John wants to say something. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at, a use, first of all, just on that last comment, that last exchange, a use could be conservation, for example, where nobody has to go there or whatever. Maybe it's inaccessible, it's wetland or whatever, but conservation is a perfectly valid use among the others that have been thrown out there. But I'm looking at section 609 on planned unit developments, and I'm looking down at section 4, item D there, the PUD, and I'm reading here, the PUD is an effective and unified treatment of the development possibilities of the project site. To me, what we have in front of us is a subdivision request with 4 lots, and the 5th one is really not part of the plan. There's no coherence with the other 4. It's just the 5th lot. So I don't know if it's not held in common by the other 4 lots. It's a separate lot, and it seems to imply in the narrative that there's prospective development envisioned there in an indefinite future. Well, I think that in order to qualify for PD, you need to come forward with that plan. And
Okay.
if it's 5 lot PUD, then it's 5 lot PUD. We can't ignore the 5th lot.
Okay, so if we did, in terms of the 4th lot, I mean, I guess that we've tossed around the idea, John, of making, and not just lot number 4, which is in the northwest corner of that field, and expanding that through the area, making it larger, which you could have a trail access. It could be, there could be common land that would be set aside, or we could expand the size of lot 4 to accommodate the rest of that density.
Yeah, I mean,
It'd be strange to make it all in lot 4 because it's common land, and in theory, at least, that's owned by that lot owner, and
Yeah.
they'd be
Yeah.
paying
Okay.
taxes. So it's really ought to be the common land.
Okay,
should really
let
be
me
a
know if
5th
there's
lot.
anything else I can help you with.
hold on, we're getting,
Siri's coming at us.
yeah, we're getting,
That sounded like Siri.
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
it was me.
The wrong
Someone
word,
said it.
Siri or Alexa.
Started my laptop going off. I was trying to shut it off. Sorry about that.
Do you know if there can be any type of improvements in the area that's labeled wetland?
No,
So we're
Yeah.
talking about trails and all these things, and we're just shooting in the breeze.
you can walk through the wetland, but you
Yeah,
couldn't
you
put a
are-
walk.
You are
And
allowed to
Donovan's a
build.
wetlands, actually. He's a
Yeah,
wetlands.
You are allowed to build boardwalks, and you are allowed to build certain infrastructure that's low impact. So walking trails, not an issue. You are allowed to set footers for a boardwalk if you wanted to, with no permit required. And typically for conservation purposes, like you could get a permit if you wanted to construct, let's say, throwing it out there, a little bridge or something for people to access and appreciate. The state usually gets behind that stuff, especially if you're setting aside an area with a purpose for conservation and enjoyment for the people that are living there.
We just did a project in Heinsberg where we actually had one access just like this. We had the state of Vermont Wildlife on board. We had the land trust on board, where they did one path down to a brook, and it was a riparian buffer, and they did a trail easement. And that was just a viewing area where the client didn't want them. It was a 100-acre parcel, so it was a big parcel. It was done as a PUD, but they actually had it in the land trust easement, and they had it with Fish and Wildlife, where people could go down along this one path. They could go down to the brook, and they could have a view of the riparian buffer. I mean, there's a lot of options that can be done to make that. I think in its natural state, I mean, it's gorgeous back there. I don't think you want to do a lot of things. I don't think you want to do anything else to it. I would propose to either add it to lot 4. I think that makes the most sense. I know what Tom is saying, that they all should own a part of that, but it's a lot easier for one parcel to own the common land and then the other 3 parcels to have easement or access to it by way of an easement. It just gets messy when it comes tax time. That's kind of a tough situation.
yeah,
So a question for the group. So we have these lots marching along, 5-acre lots. And now we're gonna have a outstanding 6-acre lot with 4 houses on it. with the intent that it's tied to 200+ acres behind.
No,
That's the way I'm reading it.
yeah, I know. but
If,
we're-
when you're driving on 116, you're gonna have a single lot with 4 houses. Opposite of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that are 5-acre lots with 1 house.
Yeah, but we're past that.
This is what I'm observing. So we're having a single footprint here, 6 acres large. With 4 houses on it, with through the avenue of PUD is being permitted to be put together. With a bike path or a gravel path to wetlands beyond, which are not usable. And probably should be conserved, but. I just don't see the continuity with the landscape or any of the surrounding area. This is much more dense than the surround, and I realize the intent of the PUD is to encourage cluster development. But this is gonna be read as being very out of sorts with the surrounding houses and properties.
Right.
I actually disagree with that. If there's a development right down the road that Kevin Poltz did, he did it maybe 15 years ago, and I did it for him. That was also done, and we clustered the homes in a small area like that. It's O'Connor Drive. If you drive up there, there's a cul-de-sac that's the same thing. We protected most of the woods. The houses are situated very close together. I think it was nicely done. It was good use of the property. We could have certainly spread houses out all over the place, but we didn't. And I mean, it's in a condensed fashion.
I'm willing to hear you out, but I'd like to see more of these houses on the adjoining lots so I could see the density. Because that's part of the relating to the neighborhood criteria of PUD.
Okay.
So we're. Maybe, I don't know if you caught what I was trying to say, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. We've all made the same, I think all of us are, spoken and made the same criticism of the sketch plan as is. Saying that you've got to maintain the overall density requirement of the zone, which, so for this, you need 20 acres. 20 acres in this development set aside and dedicated total. So they would have to do something with common land back in that corner to make this a 20-acre development and then meet the density requirement.
Correct.
There's different ways for them to do it, and it's up to them to try to figure it out. That's what I was trying to convey.
And that's what we're trying to get with the board. Does that make more sense to do it as a larger lot 4? Or does it make sense to do it as common
16
land?
lot common land.
I mean, my recommendation here with the client is to make lot 4 larger and come up with that.
Yeah, wasn't like that better than
Making
12 acres of or 14 acres of common land back there?
For a 5th lot, that would be just open. That would be,
Yeah.
so it don't be owned by all 4 parcels.
Yeah, undivided interest in common land. That's.
Yeah, the one thing I've seen with those that when it's a standalone parcel
Mhm.
is then everybody's responsible for their fair share of the taxes,
Mhm.
and it always ends up getting a little messy. Let's say these two, 1, 2, and 3 pay and lot 4 doesn't, but they still have access and use it. It's always trickier. I've found it can work,
Mhm.
just has to have the right language. I'm not a big fan of it, but.
Yeah,
Like a small HOA is what you're gonna have to form.
Yeah, it makes it more challenging down the road.
you do that anyway when you have common land. You've got to
Mhm.
comply with the Common Interest Ownership Act.
But it's easier to have dedicated common space that goes with one parcel, and that's.
Okay, well, I think that's.
I think if you asked your listers, they would probably say
I
same
don't know,
thing.
yeah, I've seen it. I guess I've seen it the way that I was thinking, that where there's a big common piece that everybody owns a part of, but I'm not necessarily wedded to that. And I think,
I would leave it up to the client. I mean,
yeah, no, I think.
I don't want to speak, he's on vacation, so.
No, I know,
speak.
and maybe it's 6 of one, half dozen of another. I just wanted to hear your reasoning, so you've explained that.
Mhm.
Any, Tom or John? Brenda's got her hand up. Brenda, go ahead.
Okay, so you brought up a lot of the stuff that I had worried about, but there's a couple of things. One is, I think that either of the methods of adding to the land that have been suggested would work, and it's up to the owner and the people who are working on or trying to work this out to figure out what they want. But it would be very helpful if there was some more detail on that funny little parcel of land that's above the parcel that you're putting the houses on. There's no detail. It's right behind, you know, all of the wording on the map. And as far as I know, it's just
Do you mean north of 1 and 4, Brenda? Or do
well,
the,
north of those 4 little houses going up that 63-foot wide corridor,
yeah,
then it's blank. And as far as I know, there's nothing there. It's a wide open dusty plain. I would like to see a map with the details on it. Where is this wetland? Where you mentioned a hill, where's the hill?
the wetlands are, the
That's
wetlands
what-
are on it, Brenda.
They are, to the north of is an open field that's
So
owned by
there's
Leah
nothing
Works.
that- You've been talking about wetlands.
Yeah,
In other words-
they're noted on the plan.
They're on the overall. I mean, to blow that up, we could make a larger, we could do.
We can do an
a-
overall, yeah.
Or put it on
Donovan
a
had-
separate.
Donovan had his hand up.
I was just gonna point to maybe we could zoom in on the overall site sketch, which it looks like
Sure.
she was doing.
Or you could have 2 little site sketches, but it would be helpful to see what's there. And the
No,
second
it's-
thing is that you seem
it-
to have a
Ju-
brook running down.
Just show
through
Brenda
the-
where it is, because it is on there, and Brenda, see those lines? That's the wetlands.
Mhm.
So
And-
they have to show
and-
you.
And how is it labeled that it's a wetland?
WL.
The purple line.
Yeah, see that line, that whole area is all wetlands behind it.
So I was expected to know what that symbol meant.
It's on the legend.
It's in the legend.
Where's the legend?
On the
On the
right
right
hand
side
side
of
of the
the
map.
Ah,
Wetland boundary, wetland buffer.
but like I was just saying, it was unclear. And the second thing is, it looks like there's a brook, and it's mentioned, that runs through the 2 of the lots. Does that brook flood if we have one of these heavy rainstorms?
The wetland serves as kind of a
Buffer.
natural buffer, kind of like a sponge. And so that absorbs a lot of the flood water. There's no brook that runs through where the proposed house sites are. This is on the larger parent parcel out to the west. It's kind of central to the wetland. And then there's a very large wetland complex that kind of surrounds the brook. And then as you're heading further west through the parcel, you then hit a toe of a slope and you head up a ridge line. And then out of the
How
well,
much impervious area do we have, either of you guys?
it's just under half an acre.
Yep,
So you don't need stormwater?
0.47.
That's correct.
As of right now, they're talking about going to a 1/4 acre
Yeah.
in the future, but let's hope not.
As of today, no.
That's the next nightmare.
And thank you, that was helpful.
Of course.
John, go ahead.
um,
John Wires?
Thank you. I'm just looking at lot 5 as it's shown here, and there is some frontage to the north along 116 there.
Mhm.
Is there a consideration of developing along there in buildable zone along there on lot 5? And if so, is that a part of the larger plan that we could see?
Potentially, the landowner has mentioned that in the future, but currently, there isn't any proposed development to the north.
Well, I would suggest that, again, going back to the subdivision, to the PUD regulations, that it envisions that we would have the opportunity to see the whole conception of the lots, the development conception.
Even if it hasn't been conceived yet, in terms of, he hasn't planned any. I mean, he
Well,
said,
if
maybe 10, 20 years down the line, but we haven't really designed anything.
That's why I think you've got to set aside 20 acres here in an integrated fashion,
Mhm.
and then those 20 acres are off the table for.
For
Yeah.
future.
If he
But
wants to
But
have-
John's right, even if you do that, there is a 6th lot, but I don't think we can ask them to tell us what they may do someday in the future on the 6th lot. They just have to know they have to come back and talk
Right.
about that.
Right.
Yeah, there's either, if they went with a bigger lot 4, Well,
fifth.
there's a bigger lot 4, there's 4 lots.
Yeah, either way, the some portion of this is not going to be in it. And
Correct.
John's not wrong that if you knew what you're going to do, you should tell us. But I don't think you have to. I think because you don't know. And
Well,
you're allowed to
if-
say, we're allowed to just say, no, full well, you got to come back if you want to do anything else. You know.
Well, that would be the case. I mean, we haven't conceptually laid anything out with the client or even planned that. I mean,
Right.
you know, a lot of times it's someone says, yeah, I may develop my land in the future and it never happens. I mean, he doesn't have any, you know, number of lots, what he wants to do with that northerly piece right now. It's not really on the table or on his radar.
Right,
The,
I'm just trying to respond to the bylaws that clearly say that, you know, the PUD is an effective and unified treatment of the development possibilities of the project site. So for me, lot 5 is part of the project.
Okay.
Well,
And
it actually
if
is
it's not, that's okay, but.
Well, it's
that's-
the part that's the PUD is being asked for on whatever 4 or 5 lots that remain. They're not asking for any specific development on the 6th lot. They're asking for a subdivision, but
Mhm.
I don't think they have to tell us what they're going to do with the rest of that in the future because they
No,
don't, especially if they don't. I mean,
But in the
clearly,
future, we'd have to come back regardless.
Yeah,
We'd
yeah.
have to
It's
have
on-
a
it's on-
subdivision amendment and we'd
it's
have to
on
have a different
116.
layout.
yeah, it's on 116 and it's not in the wetlands. So, you know, presumably someday they are going to want to do something. But
You're gonna need
as long as you
houses.
have enough, as long as you have enough land to support the PUD that you have in front of us, I think that's what we have jurisdiction over.
And there's 275 acres there, so we do have the acreage.
Yeah, you just gotta carve it,
We've got to configure it.
You've gotta separate it off so that you've got dedicated minimum
Hmm.
20 acres to this proposed development.
And we could have done this in the beginning, but we felt it was better to come in and talk about it with the board
no,
to see how they wanted to
Yeah.
go through. I mean, we informed the client that was gonna be the case, and he
Yeah.
said, well, let's discuss this with the board.
Yeah.
This is the reason for a sketch plan.
That's right, that's right.
I
You've
mean,
gotta sharpen your pencil a little bit, and there's different ways to skin the cat, and we're not committing one way or the other to any particular idea, other than to give you the guidance that you've gotta maintain 609 or B, among other things, and right
For the
now you
density.
don't.
right, for the density.
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of PUD, and I think John said it well, is that there's an integration at some
Mm-hmm.
level, but in conservation is a proposed use, and the more accessible
The
you
nice
can make
thing-
it, I think the better. But I don't think you have to have a development plan for all the retained land once you carve off 20.
Well, the nice thing about the wetlands too is conserved.
Well, you know,
That's
as it turns out,
a good thing.
you had some experience on this because we had that.
We had,
The thing, where
Yeah.
this board was concerned about serial PUDs.
Mhm.
And we indicated there that we weren't gonna go down that path.
Correct.
And we didn't. So, the client decided to configure otherwise, but here we can,
that one was a little different because they
Sure.
had X limited acreage, but
That's right.
in this particular case, I mean, we could configure this a lot of different ways. We
Right.
just want to do what we believe is the most appropriate with the clustering of the homes, with being able to protect the bulk of the property that's there. We don't know what's gonna happen to the north. We can certainly expand the size of lot 4, and I agree that if we do that, that we could show common land on the balance of lot 4, and then lots 1, 2, and 3 would have access by way of a trail easement.
yeah,
Just like we did the one in Heinsberg where it's actually one little easement that goes down to the brook and back. They requested it wasn't like a free-for-all on
Mhm.
their whole property.
they were channeling access to a
They were keeping it to a certain spot.
particular area, which.
And, the Fish and
Yeah.
Wildlife, they were part of it as well, so it did work out. We can certainly do either way. We can designate something there, or we can add it to lot.
Yeah, and
And I think a trail.
Does anybody have other concerns to express or guidance to offer?
Yeah, I do. I don't, I understood what Josh was saying a few minutes ago about just the feeling of tightly clustered houses there. I share some of that concern, but I do believe in PUD. So I'm okay with the basic development. For me to feel good about this though, I want to see, and I love conservation as a use, but I want to see it have some real utility to those 4 lot owners. So to me, I'd like to see a meaningful trail that runs back and accesses as much of that 20 acres as possible. And that means if you got to cross any water or serious wetlands, put a little wooden bridge over it or a little wooden walkway over it. Make me feel like those 4 lot owners really have access to the other 14 acres. Then I'll feel like you accomplished what a PUD is doing, because they're not just owning a little house, they're owning a chunk of woods. And then you're doing the right thing. And I'll be for the PUD if you do it that way.
And that's what we were fully aware to discuss with the DRB tonight. So that's, I mean, this is.
So I'm saying, even if you gotta
good.
spend a little, I'm basically done, even if you gotta spend a little money in the woods, I want you to do that. I want, you know, it can be a mulch trail, it can be, doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to have some meaningful way to get back there and access that property.
Make it usable.
Yeah,
Have utility.
I think that's great. I'm all for it. Obviously, it's not my money, but I have to talk about it with the client. I'm sure he would be more than happy if, you know, he likes the concept of the clustered homes.
What class wetlands do we have here, Donovan or Jason?
It's 2.
It's 2.
It's a big complex. I mean, I think everyone knows where this is. It runs the entire length from.
Yeah, it's well, I mean, and I feel pretty strongly about that. And if he just said, it's out there, it's woods, they can get to it. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna have trouble voting for this.
Hey, we're surveyors. If we have to go out and GPS in a trail, that's the best part of our job. You know, we love coming to meetings and doing that 3 or 4 nights a week, but if we can be out with our GPS equipment, that works out even better. That's
Well, you
why.
want to avoid black flies.
Well, we're in it now.
Started last week.
And I'd be happy. We could flag it out and we could pop it on a map. We've done that all the time. So I think that's a great solution, coming up with the 14 extra acres, whether it's part of common land that's part of the overall lot, or even, you know, I think the common land, I've found it's worked out best if it's actually part of a single lot.
Yeah,
And it just keeps things cleaner.
You've got a point. Then you do have a single owner who takes on that extra burden, who knows from day one that he has to make it accessible to other people. I think that's unusual, but I get it. It's got some practical utility, and you know, if it works, I don't think we care, as long as all the other 3 property owners have truly access to that, meaningful access to those woods.
And it looked, you know, just by the unusual layout of the existing property, you've got a natural boundary line for where the common land begins. You've got, if you make 4 bigger.
It's actually, it works out
You
good.
can
And
go off the northeast corner of Barry O'Connor's land, or you can go off the southwest corner of Orvis. It's up to you, but the point is you have to define on the plan
we'll
where
have
the
it.
common land is.
we'll have it. I mean, I have to leave that up to those.
Sure.
You know, it's not my land to.
No, I know, but we just wanted, you know, I'm saying we're gonna want to be able to identify on the map. On the survey where the common land is.
Oh, no, we'll put it on. We can even put meets and bounds on it so that can be recreated in the future.
Yeah, or.
Like an easement, like, you know, we can demarcate that however you want. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, you know, again, I think that as we go forward in the future, you know, people are going to have to get more accustomed to living a little bit closer together. I mean, I think the ways of the 10-acre parcels chews up a lot of valuable land.
Yeah, they should be doing it in their town centers. Yeah, not out on 116.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of infrastructure in the town centers in terms of municipal water and sewer, and you're limited by that.
Yeah, and it's cheaper for us as a township to maintain that was in the town centers.
It's harder to get that capital money to get it installed in a lot of these, in Vermont. I mean, I just, when you're talking about a small town, it would be great if everything were clustered in town. But when you're talking Shoreham, Bridport, Addison, those towns, it's not actually feasible because of the cost of the infrastructure. It's tough. I mean, Bristol and then in here, you're blessed with good soils, but now that municipal sewer is more or less taxed out, your growth is.
Yeah, I just want to make one comment when you're talking about putting meets and bounds on the trail. You don't need to do that because, I mean, you need to lay out a trail, I think, but honestly, the way it has to work is those other property owners have to have access to that full 14 acres. They're not just limited to the trail because it has to be, they all have to have full use of that, so your
Yeah, we're not
easements.
gonna do meets and bounds on, maybe you misunderstood me, Tom. We're not gonna do meets and bounds on a trail.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
but
on the perimeter of the.
on the perimeter of the 14 acres.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Meets and bounds on a
Absolutely.
trail would be,
Yeah, just to demarcate the
Yeah.
common land itself.
the survey
yeah.
guys would be swearing at Donovan and I.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, you absolutely need to do that.
Yeah. So,
Brenda, anything else? John?
I thought
anything
you were
else?
trying to get an excuse to stay in the woods for a long period of time.
I wish we could survey this whole parcel. This would be a fun.
You better do it this week because pretty soon it's gonna be full of green stuff and it's not gonna be easy to walk around.
We're just wrapping up a 100-acre survey in Killington.
Yeah,
It's taken us about 3 months.
Wow.
We started in the fall and it's been a great project. It's called the Legacy Project. It's the state of Vermont is purchasing a bunch of land and it's going into conservation. So this would be a fun one like that and walking around, hiking around in the woods, but we can certainly talk with the client, expand that 14 acres, get some trails on there, and come in with a preliminary or final plat that meets those requirements.
Okay, Josh, anything else?
No, thank you.
Anybody? All right, I think we're good with you guys, so it's a major subdivision. Peggy, and once they have a preliminary proposed design plan, they'll get it to Chris and Chris will warn a hearing.
Yep.
And then and there'll be more opportunity for feedback there, and there has to be 2 hearings, so at a minimum, so there will be on this one.
Yeah, I'm saying we're come through with preliminary, so you'll
Yeah.
have a good look at it.
All right,
Yeah,
okay, thanks Donovan, thanks Jason. We've got some minutes to try to approve.
thank you, board.
Thank you.
We may need to request an extension on Adam promises.
Everyone on Street.
Yeah,
Discuss, give me a call and we'll. figure it out.
yeah, I figured I just mentioned it. And you may want to just get some prices and stuff.
All right.
I would move that we adopt the February 28th minute.
Yeah. Do you have a copy? Let me.
I don't take it February. I have February. I only have printed out March. Or do you have all February's down there?
I've got March here.
I think I printed two
Okay.
sets of Marches. I'll pull February up on the screen.
Okay, yeah.
I'll send it down. Yeah, it's the same thing. In a few seconds, I hope we need minutes.
All right, well, let's look at the March ones while Chris is pulling up the February.
March, you're gonna look at first.
Yeah, since Josh and I have them here.
Pull those up right now for you all. There,
Let's see, so that is
Can we
me,
have one motion to
John,
approve them
Tom,
both?
Josh, Brenda. So we've got 5 people. We've got 5 people for March 28th, so let's look at that one first.
Looks okay to me.
I'm good with it.
Can I make a motion?
Now, let
Oh.
me finish.
John, you got your point. Did we clarify your point on the repair shop?
I did in the decision.
Yes.
I blended them.
Nice. I'm good.
I'm good too.
Okay, so everybody, well, Ted's not here, so all the rest of us were here. I'll move to approve the March 28 minutes. 2023.
Second.
All those, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that one passes. Let's look at February 28th.
Share it real quick.
So that was,
That's I can, just share.
yeah.
There we go.
All right, so me, for those of us who are here, me, John, Tom, Josh, Brenda. So again, we've got who we need. Kuzno. Okay, this is the one on Burpee Road.
Yes, sir.
I think it sums it up pretty good. Excuse me.
So did Kevin submit a compliant plat? He did, okay, you need to take the wells off. I'll move that we approve the February, what day, 23rd,
28.
Hey,
28th, minutes as drafted.
second.
Any discussion?
Well, the only discussion I had is I'm just noticing it was a 28-minute meeting, which that's good.
Yeah, that was pretty good, huh?
Much better than our first couple.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
All. So I made the motion. Did somebody second?
Josh,
Josh did. Any discussion other than we were quick? All those in favor? All right, so 5-0. Minutes are approved.
So I just wanted to compliment our secretary, Peggy. You're doing a very good job on the minutes. And
Yes, thank you.
it does make it easy to approve them. So thank you for that.
Yes.
Yeah, Josh wanted to say something. Go ahead.
So I talked to Kevin earlier, but this is gonna be my last meeting for a little bit. I'm gonna take a year off or something just to do some family time, but I will rejoin in the future. So I think there's an unfinished matter of supporting minutes reviews at some point. So I don't know what the process is with that and contributing to that.
Well, so you're actually going to step off the board?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's the action that's,
Yeah, I mean,
Retired.
yeah, there's no like leave of
No, we
absence.
can't do a leave, unfortunately. I
No.
checked into that.
right.
No, okay, all right, so, yeah,
My
well,
wife just asked me to,
if, I get it.
Oh,
no.
trust me, it's better if you do it then.
yes,
Yeah, no, we get it, it's, if, you could not, if you're no longer on the board, you couldn't vote on past minutes.
No,
I don't see how you could, so hopefully we don't get caught in any bind if you were if we had only 4 on one of the meetings and you were one of the 4. Those minutes will never be officially approved.
yeah, I could serve as an alternate potentially.
Well, that's the other piece I was gonna suggest is, I know that there's 2 alternates. I think there's 2 alternates.
We have an open, we have an open seat and one of them, yeah. Yeah, maybe, well, do we have?
we have to
any-
actually ask I think the select board has to do that, but we could ask them to change Josh back to an alternate. They can do that.
Yeah,
And that way I have more flexibility and I don't have to be here all the time.
yeah, right, no,
And
it's,
if there's something mission critical, like there's minutes, or if there's a hearing where we know we're gonna be short, if you were available, that would be phenomenal.
yeah.
Keeping your experience on the board would be helpful.
Yeah, no, it's nice to maintain our flexibility, 'cause boy, you don't want to get in a situation where you have no room for disagreement.
Right,
Because that creates its own pressure
could-
where somebody who has a legitimate concern feels like they gotta, are they gonna kill it by voting against it or, you know, and there's, I think it can,
And it's okay to say no.
yeah, no, it's, no, it'd be great if we could leave you alone, but pull you in an emergency.
You can zoom in from Tahiti.
That's
Yeah,
right, that's right.
I'm sitting in the Virgin Islands right now, so,
I
There you
thought,
go.
yeah, I thought I saw a margarita there on your desk.
yeah.
All right.
You didn't, but there could have been.
All right, we done?
That would be it for the evening.
Okay, thanks, folks. Have a good night.
Good night. Talk
Good night.
soon.
See ya. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good meeting.
You're welcome.